If you sell on Amazon, you already know that one bad inventory buy can be a total disaster for your business. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the single most important tool for stopping those costly mistakes right in their tracks, Keepa. We are going to turn that confusing squiggly graph into your own personal profit map.
You know that knot you get in your stomach? Every Amazon seller has felt it. You find a product, it looks super profitable right this second, but then you click buy and you're just hoping. Is this thing going to be a winner? Or is it going to sit on a shelf collecting dust and losing you money?
Well, that's exactly where Keepa comes in. This is the tool that really separates the pros from the gamblers. It lets you stop all that guesswork and start making your buying decisions based on cold, hard data.
And this really brings us to what you could call the Amazon seller's dilemma. See, the core problem is that you're usually making a huge decision based on just a single snapshot in time. But what you really need to know is the product's actual history. What was the price last month? How many other sellers were there? Is this thing even selling, or is it a total?
The best way to think about it is like this. Keepa is basically a time machine. Seriously, it lets you go back and see a product's entire life story on Amazon, which gives you all the historical context you need to predict what it's going to do next. So let's get right into it and start with the heart and soul of Keepa, the main chart. This is where you're going to spend most of your time. And believe me, learning to read this thing is a skill you absolutely have to have.
This main chart is basically tracking three vital signs for any product. First, you've got the price history, which tells you what people are actually paying for it. Second is the sales rank. That's your key to figuring out its sales velocity. And third, the new offer count, which shows you exactly how much competition you're really up against.
Okay, now before we even try to analyze a chart, we have to make sure we're looking at the right stuff. These are the 4 essential settings you need to turn on every single time. Checking Amazon tells you if you're about to compete with the mothership itself, and that's often a losing battle. Sales rank is kind of like our demand meter. And then, super importantly, we need both new third-party FBA to see what your real competitors are priced at, and the buy box, which shows you the price that is actually winning the sales.
So let's quickly talk about sales rank. It's just Amazon's way of showing how well an item is selling compared to other stuff in its category. A lower number is always better, always. But, and this is a really crucial point, a rank of 50,000 in toys and games might be flying off the shelves, selling hundreds a month, while that exact same rank in, say, arts and crafts might barely sell at all. So context is absolutely everything.
So how do all these data points actually interact? Well, it all just comes down to basic supply and demand. Just picture this. A profitable product gets found, and suddenly a bunch of other sellers jump on the listing. And what happens when supply just explodes like that? Well, sellers start trying to undercut each other to get the sale, right? And the price? It tanks. It's that classic race to the bottom that just destroys any chance of making a profit.
But the cycle keeps going. Sooner or later, those sellers who bought in at the higher price, they either sell out their inventory or they just give up because the margins are gone. The supply of the product starts to shrink. And, just like you'd guess, the cycle reverses. With fewer competitors hanging around, the supply drops, that downward price pressure eases up, and the profit margin starts to recover. Understanding this whole ebb and flow is the absolute key to timing your buys just right.
So look, if you remember just one thing from this section, make it this. That new offer count line is your early warning system. When you see the number of sellers on a listing suddenly spike, you need to treat that as a massive red flag. It's a huge sign that the price is probably about to crash.
Okay, reading the main graph, that's level 1. But the real money, well, it's made by the sellers who know how to dig a little deeper. So let's move beyond the graph and see how we can build a real competitive advantage.
So if you dig into Keepa's data, there are 2 tabs that are absolute gold mines of information. The Offers tab and the Buy Box Statistics tab. These are going to tell you things the main graph can only kind of hint at.
This is where you get to do some real detective work. I love this part. The Offers tab lets you see the actual stock count of individual sellers over time. So if a seller doesn't hide their inventory, you can literally watch how many units they're selling and how fast they're selling them. For instance, in the source material for this whole explainer, we saw one seller's stock drop by 350 units in just 3 weeks. 350. That's not a guess. That's not an estimate. That's a hard number that proves this product is absolutely flying off the shelves. It gives you incredible confidence to make that buy. Next up is Buy Box Statistics, and this is a check you have to do before you buy anything. It shows you who is actually getting the sales. Is the buy box being shared fairly among all the sellers, or is one brand or one seller completely dominating the whole listing?
And here's what that looks like in the real world. That top scenario, that's a huge red flag. If one seller is hogging 95% of the buy box, your chances of getting a sale are pretty much zero. But that bottom scenario, that's exactly what you want to see. The sales are being shared pretty evenly. That's a healthy, competitive listing where you can jump in and know you're going to get your piece of the pie.
All right, let's put it all together. We've gone through the theory, so now let's apply it by comparing two real-world examples, one that's a terrible buy and one that's a clear winner.
Just look at the difference here. On the left, we've got a classic bad buy. The offer count just exploded and, just like we predicted, the price crashed. Supply totally blew past demand. That's a trap. But on the right, you see all the signs of a great buy. The offer count and the price are stable, they're predictable. This is the kind of safe, replenishable product you can build a real business on.
So the ultimate takeaway from all of this is actually pretty simple. A product's history is the single best way to predict its future performance. Keepa gives you that history. Your job is just to stop gambling and start analyzing.
So now you have the framework to decode any Keepa chart. The next time you're about to spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on inventory, pull up that graph and ask yourself, what story is this product's history really telling me?